sounds better than any other new Honda on the market, this V6. It sounds better than the Type R, it sounds better than the SI. Welcome back everyone, this is a 2023 Honda Passport Elite Edition. As you can see, it is decked out with the gold HPD wheels. Quick look around the vehicle. You're either going to love or hate the HPD wheels. I think they would look better with a, the Trail Sport package, meaty tire. It seems kind of strange to have those kind of beadlock looking wheels with a thin profile street tire on them. That's just my opinion, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Overall, the exterior I think looks really, really good on this car. I've always loved the Passports. The rear does look a little Fordish to me, but not horrible. But the front end I think looks fantastic. Overall proportions of this car look pretty aggressive. It's only 4 inches longer than the 11th gen Civic sedan, so keep that in mind. It's really not that long of a vehicle compared to the Civic. Pilot, obviously a different category. It's got the 3rd row. This only has 2 rows, so if you have more than a family of 4, this is not the car for you. But if you are a family of 4, this is a really, really fun vehicle to get into as a daily driver or a family road trip vehicle. And let me show you why. Alright, so taking a look at the 2023 Honda Passport on the inside. Rather large steering wheel, leather wrapped, nicely laid out steering controls that remind me a lot of my wife's CR-V of 2021. Same kind of layout to it. Not a huge fan of the buttons to shift gears here. You got your auto start stop off right here, which is something you should hit every time you get in the car. So we got that enabled now. Climate control is laid out pretty nice, pretty simple to use. Got your functions for your rear diff here, rear lock, and then settings for it. I'm not going to get into that too much here. Heated seats, cooled seats in this trim. Something I'm not going to use today is the cooled seats. It's 38 degrees out. Easy access to your driver assist buttons down here, traction control off, parking sensors, collision control, rain sensing wipers and lane mitigation assist, mirror adjustments, econ button, which we're not going to use. And this one has fog lights, which are controlled on the stalk up here. And then on and off auto headlights. And I love that this is a 2023 model and you can turn the headlights off. I can't do that in my 2023 Civic. They fling back to auto every time, and you can't drive the car without the lights off if the car thinks it's too dark out. It's always in auto mode. So being that this is maybe a generation behind of a refresh, other than the front end getting refreshed, the controls on the inside I think are better than the Civic. They are a little more intuitive and easy to access and don't force you into automation as much. Paddle shifters in this one. This is an automatic transmission. This is the first Honda I've driven in quite a while that doesn't have a CVT. That's an automatic transmission. I haven't driven a traditional automatic Honda in a while, so I'm pretty excited to do that. But I'm pretty excited to show you guys just the way this thing drives. It surprised me with how much fun it is and how silly the VTEC crossover is. It reminds me of my 8th gen SI in a way. Backup camera, really good resolution. And then to go and drive, you just push down. This button has a lot of throw to it too. It goes down probably an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. You press it once, you go into drive mode, it lights up green. If you press it again, you'll go into sport mode. So as you can see on the dash, there's 4,100 miles on this vehicle, and throughout that entire time, this car has averaged 23.3 mpg, which I think is pretty good because I don't think a lot of it has been highway, being that it's a very heavy V6 vehicle. 23.3 isn't bad. I think my wife's CR-V is only 3 to 4 miles per gallon better average right now with the same type of driving. First impressions when driving down this kind of rough neighborhood road here is you have a lot of feel through the tires to the steering wheel and everything. The suspension definitely doesn't feel extremely soft on first impressions here. You can feel a lot of the texture in the road right off the bat, and it doesn't feel like you're not just gliding along on a very soft suspension. One thing I will say, just first impressions about the tach, it's nice and symmetric. However, I think the CR-V does it better, and that is the 2017 to 2022 generation, where the tachometer in this car is kind of small. And there's a little lag there with the torque converter kicking in the automatic transmission. You can hear there, that was just in drive, so I'll change it to sport and use the paddles in a minute, but this thing is a lot of fun and it sounds really good. The VTEC crossover is just so loud. I'm sure the camera is not picking it up as loud, but it is silly. I'll put it in sport mode for you here. We are now in sport, and the paddles are nice because it allows you to stay in gear. It doesn't force you to upshift and everything. I'm gonna punch it here. Pretty responsive. There's a little bit of lag when you hit the paddles to upshift, but it's an SUV. You're not going to expect it to be like a, you know, a sports car by any means. If you can afford this car and you're looking to shop for an SUV and you only have a couple kids and you're in the price range of around $40,000 to $50,000, maybe not go for the Elite. I mean, this thing might give you more bells and whistles than you really need, but you're still going to get the same fun factor out of the base trim, which I believe starts in the high 30s now. You used to be able to get these Passports really close to 30. I think it was like $31,000 just a couple of years ago got you into a sport or a base model Passport. Now they have gone up like $8,000 to $9,000 just for the base trim. Of course, they give you some more and they cut out the lower trims, but it's just becoming a little bit more unaffordable. They were a great value. You can see out here I'm lugging it in fifth and the car is not choosing to downshift for me. It's leaving it in fifth, which I think is awesome. You can see it rides second gear right here, and we'll punch it in second. Like I said, a little laggy when you let off the throttle and hit the next gear. It kind of waits for a second. Can't remember if this is a 9-speed or a 10-speed. I believe it is the 9-speed. Correct me in the comments, guys, if I'm wrong on that. But I can't imagine you'd need more than 9 gears in one of these. People have said the 9-speed transmissions have had issues. They've had to take them back to the dealer when they're rather new. We were just on that rough road there, and you know, it's not as probably cushy soft, I'd say, as the CR-V that we have. The CR-V absorbs most of the bumps and kind of floats along a little more. This definitely feels more aggressive, and you can feel the road and the bumps a lot more. Definitely makes the driving experience more engagement if you're into that type of thing. Okay, so that was weird. It upshifted for me that time. So let me run it out in first, it let me run out in second, and then I hit third, then it chose to go to fourth pretty quick, which was strange. I don't know if that was a fluke, if I double hit it or not, but that's the first I've seen it do that. So on this screen here, you can look at your fuel mileage if you really want to. It's probably not something you're going to want to look at in this car. But you have your all-wheel drive torque meter, which is kind of cool to look at, but probably more of a distraction than anything while driving to look at that. I'm going to put it back into regular sport without the paddles here. The induction noise just makes me giggle every time I get on it here because it sounds better than any other new Honda on the market, this V6. It sounds better than the Type R, it sounds better than the SI. Those cars are just so watered down with their engine noise and their exhaust tones that they have to pipe fake engine noises through the speakers in all those cars. This is like the last breed of Honda that has a good sounding, naturally aspirated engine and doesn't need any fake audio through the speakers to let you know that it's something special. This car is just straight induction noise, and I'll say it again, it's just hilarious that this is like the last breed of the Honda that's like this, and it's their SUV and their minivan. So or their truck too. I don't know if the Ridgeline sounds as nasty as this, but I imagine it does too. The Pilot in 2024 is getting a new V6. You guys probably already all know that. It is the same displacement, I believe, a 3.5, but they went from a single overhead cam with VTEC down to dual overhead cam, or I should say up to dual overhead cam, but they took away VTEC. So this crazy crossover and induction noise you hear in this car is no longer in the new Pilot, and I imagine they're going to be rolling that new dual overhead cam V6 to this Passport as well in the upcoming years, and the Odyssey and the Ridgeline, I'd imagine. But yeah, talking more about the gauge cluster, I think the tachometer, like I think I mentioned it before, it's too small. You know, I'm 6'3", I'm pretty far away from the steering wheel, and it's the font of the numbers and just glancing down to see where you are. You really have to put your eyes on it and focus on it to see where you are in the rev range. And on the sides of this square screen here are your fuel and your coolant gauge, but the way they're, you know, dials, I think, is doesn't really flow as good with the square center screen. I think the CR-V did it better, where they had kind of the angled bars on the side of the square screen, where it looked a little bit more presentable. And what's funny is the tachometer on the CR-V is much larger than this. I don't know if the screen's larger, but you can see the font and the tachometer a lot better, and that car's a CVT, so you really don't care about RPM in that car. You can actually turn it off. I'm sure you can turn the tachometer off in this car too. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because it is an automatic transmission, but with the CVT, they made the tach bigger on a car that doesn't really need the tach to show for most drivers. So that's an interesting point, but that's really my only complaint with the dash and everything, is the tach's a little small. New CR-Vs, the new Civics, that even the new Pilot, I believe, have that. They're kind of all sharing the same dash layout and controls and steering wheel look now. And those cars always have two speedometers. They have an analog speedometer on the right and then the digital in the middle, which makes no sense to me. Just give us one or the other. But this car has just the digital. I think it's a much cleaner look. Drop to second. That VTEC crossover, when I had it in third and fourth there, when it crossed over, you really feel it pull hard. It's not as crazy as the crack of VTEC on my 8th gen SI, but you can really feel it pull harder, and the transition audibly is incredibly loud. So I've got it back in drive now, taking some of these turns. It doesn't feel like a washy boat. Like I said, the CR-V was not nearly as sporty and fun to drive. I imagine this is a little stiffer than the Pilot too, since that's more family oriented. But not much body roll around the turns. Of course, it is an SUV, so it's obviously not really comparable to the Civics or any smaller car than this for body roll, but steering feels great. You can actually feel more through the steering wheel in this vehicle than I can in my 2023 Civic Sport, so that's a plus for this car, even though I don't like the design of the steering wheel as much as the new Civics, CR-Vs, and Pilots. So let's pop this thing back into Sport. Take another rip at it here, so you can hear that VTEC crossover. I'll turn off the HVAC controls this time, so you can really hear it. Brakes feel really good. This thing is just plain silly with the way it gets up and goes and has that crossover and handles around the turns pretty well with these somewhat low profile for an SUV tires. And you know, it shouldn't, an SUV like this shouldn't be this much fun ripping back roads on the street, but with this power plant and the way the suspension is set up, it really puts a smile on your face here. I'll pop it back into drive now. Taking a look through the screen, you can show your trip computer, the all-wheel drive torque, of course, we were just looking at that. Your phone, navigation, this does have Navi outside of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can show what's playing for your audio, maintenance, which is your tire pressure and oil life. This car actually does show you the tire pressure in each tire, which is something most Hondas don't do nowadays, so you must have to get the Elite trim for that. Your oil life, seatbelt reminder, which I don't know why you'd want that on. I guess maybe if your kids are playing games with you in the back seat. Settings, change your units, leave it blank if you want. Sirius XM, this car does have Sirius XM, which is probably included for a certain amount of time when you buy this car. Android Auto, which is I find interesting, it's got its own button down here, but Apple CarPlay does not have a button down here. Maybe it means the same thing, maybe it doesn't, but you can see the Apple CarPlay button over here and Android Auto are right next to each other, so I don't know why it doesn't appear down on the dash here. But infotainment, it's been around a few years. Resolution's great, it's responsive, nothing to write home about though, it works. Like I said, the climate controls, pretty simple to use. You have rear zone, front zone separate. Got my heated seats on still on low. Feeling pretty good. It's definitely a comfortable commuter, a fun commuter. It's got 2 levels of memory seats over here. I don't really know how to set those. And then you got your fuel door release down here and your hatch release, your rear trunk release there. So hood release is still mechanical cable down by there, and your parking brake is like a truck where you have a third pedal off to the left. No ripping e-brake in this car, unfortunately. But it is a good thing that that's a mechanical e-brake. So they didn't put the electronic park brake in the Passport yet, which I think is pretty nice. All right, guys, one more time here. Let's give it a rip. i-vtec. See, it just did it again where it shifted from 3rd to 4th. It didn't let me stay in, and I definitely didn't hit the paddle that time. So I don't know what the deal is there. It's not a true, I guess it's not a true, you know, manual mode where it ignores the car's suggestions and just does what the user inputs. So that's a little bit of a letdown, but definitely has held it for other pulls. So I don't know what makes the car decide it needs to shift. I don't know if it's seeing transmission temperature too high for some reason, and it's like, all right, enough of that, but I can drop it down to 3rd again. i-vtec 5500. So good. So good. But it's funny because it's just like the complaints about my 2023 Civic Sport 6-speed manual, the K20. i-vtec hits at 5500. You have i-vtec till about 6800. Same red line as the K20 in my car, and i-vtec kicks at the same time. This car has closer ratios because it's a 9 or 10 speed, and the other car, obviously my other car is a 6-speed manual, so the ratios are spread apart a little further. But this car still falls out of i-vtec on every shift. Even if you shift at 6800, it falls out of i-vtec in its next gear, so you're cracking that crossover on every pull you do in every gear. So it just adds to the drama. But from a functionality standpoint and an acceleration standpoint, it really doesn't make sense to have it fall out of i-vtec like that. If they put it at like 5,000 or 4,500, probably would get a lot worse gas mileage, but it would stay in i-vtec the whole pull. This car definitely, if you can afford it, if it's in your price range, you're looking to cross shop this between the CR-V and this car, because they really do have comparable room on the inside. The rear leg room in this car and the CR-V, I'm gonna say, aren't too much different. So if you're looking to put rear-facing child seats in both of these cars and you're a family of 4, don't expect you're gonna get an incredible amount more room in this car. I think you're gonna get a little more room between the car seats because this vehicle does feel wider, but you're not gonna have a ton more leg room up front when you have those rear-facing car seats in the back there. Another thing I love, which I didn't really have before in many other cars I've owned, are these captain's chairs up front. I love having the armrest and the way it clicks to the certain angle you want to rest your elbow on for the steering wheel. It's one of the big complaints of my 2023 Civic was The center console is absolute crap, and you can't rest your elbow on it comfortably with the manual transmission and drive the car with, you know, while resting your elbow and holding the steering wheel. So I'm gonna end the video here, guys. I'm gonna be hitting traffic now, and the rest of my commute will be a little bit more boring. So thanks, guys, for watching. Give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.